Boston, Seattle. Awesome. Welcome, Jess. So excited to have all of you guys here. And last time I'll say this just for everyone that's currently joining us to make sure that we can all see your questions as they come in. Please just change the bottom toggle from all panelists to read all panelists and attendees. That way we can all see your questions and where everyone's from. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started here as more people start to join in. So thank you guys again for coming on, for joining me today, probably around your lunch break, and for taking a time out of your busy day, because that's what this is all about. It's about sharing tools with you that will make and have a massive impact on your daily life, especially right now. So we all know that we deal with stress in our lives and that we'd be better off physically and mentally if we could get it under control and find something that really works, right? But it's important to note that stress isn't all bad. In fact, we do need it in our lives at times. It can be a really motivating factor when we're under pressure to perform well or to ace an important exam, but it's the chronic stress, the stress that is happening all of the time, and the anxiety that has a really negative impact on our body. And it's time for us in this webinar to start to take charge of that and to fix it. So without further ado, let me start here and talk to you about how this training is going to go, okay? So this afternoon, we're going to talk about stress and anxiety, and I'm going to share 7 techniques with you that will help you take back control of your life. At the end, I'll try to answer some questions if we have time. During the session, if you do have questions along the way, please ask them in the chat box to the right that you were letting me know where you're from. Drop your questions in there, and then I'll do my best to answer them as they come up. And then some of them I'll wait till the end, just so we don't interrupt the flow of how things are going, okay? So I'll also be sharing some important handouts and bonuses and direct links to some free downloads at the end of the session. I'll also be passing along all of these slides. So this way you don't need to be furiously writing down anything during the presentation. You can just be fully present, enjoy everything that I'm sharing, and I'll send this all to you guys again via the chat box here at the end. Because the biggest and most important thing here is that you all walk away with new knowledge and new techniques that you can implement into your lifestyle. So be sure to stay all the way through to the end, okay? And remember, I'm going to be sharing a lot of information with you today, but don't let it overwhelm you. The biggest and the most important thing to remember is that massive changes come from small, gradual steps. So we're going to start small, okay? And we're going to build from there. And for those of you too, before I jump in here, if you're just joining us, please make sure that you go to the bottom of your page and hit the chat box there and change the toggle from all panelists to all panelists and attendees, and jump in there and let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from, and this will be where and how we communicate back and forth throughout this entire presentation, okay? So let me start off by giving you a little bit of background on me. So, hi Margie, welcome from DC. So I am a certified holistic health coach and nutrition expert. I'm also trained in Reiki energy healing and have been practicing for 10+ years. So I've worked with thousands of people. I've helped them improve how they feel, their energy levels, and their overall approach to living their healthiest and most inspired lives. I'm a former athlete. So I played Division I water polo at UC Berkeley on a full ride scholarship. I was the top recruit in the country coming out of high school, and then I traveled the world playing the sport and was a member of the US women's national team. So I became aware of chronic stress and anxiety when I was about 22 years old. I was working really long hours at a nonprofit for very, very little money. I was living in San Francisco during a pretty terrible economic downturn, and I was struggling deeply with food and body image issues. And not knowing what was really happening to me, and I just sort of thought, this is what it's like to be an adult now. So I turned to food and exercise as a way to feel more in control of my life. without the proper tools, I found myself, I was restricting food, I was over exercising, I was over caffeinating, and then I was burying myself in this, I'm too busy with work sort of facade for almost 5 years. And after those 5 years, I hit this wall from just treating my body like crap and suffering from massive anxiety and anxiety attacks. I wasn't sleeping well. My body was starting to hold on to weight. I had massive brain fog and I just felt exhausted all of the time. My hormones were totally fried. And the thing was, I had been suffering from chronic stress and massive anxiety. And it was time for me to finally take control of that. So fast forward, 5 years or so, and I turned that breakdown into a breakthrough. And I became a certified holistic health coach to help people get healthy, not just through their food choices, but by managing their stress and anxiety. I also learned how to practice Reiki, and I became a Reiki energy practitioner. I spent years learning how to manage stress and anxiety and then turn those teachings into techniques that I can share with my clients. And that is exactly what I'm going to be sharing with all of you today. So here's what we're going to learn today. So stress doesn't need to control your life. You can learn how to control it, okay? We're going to talk about 7 techniques to implement into your life to help you manage stress and anxiety, and then how to unwind in a really positive way without reaching for food, alcohol, Instagram, television, or all those other easy distractions that we normally reach for. Because the thing is it's really easy for us to dismiss stress and anxiety by focusing on other distractions, right? It's a lot easier for us to reach for a glass of wine or to scroll through Instagram and watch stories than it is to deal with our feelings or to practice, deep breathing, for example. So while these things feel good in the near term, right? The glass of wine or Instagram or zoning out with a television show, they're hurting us down the line. That doesn't mean you can't do it on occasion, but we want to make sure that we get to the heart of what's really going on here. So before we dive into the solutions, I want to clearly define the difference between stress and anxiety and how I'll be addressing that difference here, okay? So both stress and anxiety are traumatic states of emotional and psychological strain driven by a vague feeling of impending doom or upcoming deadlines, okay? So the major difference between stress and anxiety is that stress is almost always attached to something, an event, a person, something like that. It has to do with a frustrating thought or situation. So it normally dissipates when the situation is solved, okay? Anxiety is feelings of apprehension or fear about things that may or may not happen. And with anxiety, there's no need for that external stimuli. So unlike stress, which can happen on occasion, anxiety can be present on a nearly daily basis, right? All day, okay? And then if stress builds and if it manifests, it can manifest into anxiety as well. So then the two really start to feed off of each other, okay? So for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to use stress and anxiety a little interchangeably. And while we know that there is a slight difference, all of the tools that I share are going to help you calm down and relax and approach the world from a more peaceful perspective, whether your situation is as a result of external stimuli or it's internal from anxiety. All right. So it's also really important that we understand the physical effects of stress and why it's so hard on our bodies, okay? So our bodies are built to release cortisol as a response to stress. It used to be that as really primal beings, we used to release cortisol when we needed to run away from a tiger or survive an attack or a famine. So when that would happen, that stress response would begin and would tell our body to shut down all non-essential functions, okay? So shut down the reproductive system in women, tell the body to hold on to weight so we can survive that famine, we have enough food. All of the focus moves towards how do I run away and survive? So from a primal perspective, that cortisol spike makes sense. It's helping us survive. But now the stressors aren't tigers. There are bosses, our in-laws, financial stressors, the quarantine, right? So having a little bit of stress in our lives can be helpful. Like I said earlier, it's meant to help us survive, to get more done, to stay safe. And all of this is a part of our primal build as humans. But that stress should be in small, manageable doses, not every single day, the way that we're currently experiencing it. So many of us are experiencing this fight or flight response many times throughout the day, which means constant elevated levels of cortisol. And that's something that we really don't want. So that leads me to the physical effects of elevated levels of cortisol. So it can lead to things like digestive issues, an increase in blood pressure, burnt out adrenal glands, thyroid imbalances, insomnia, low immunity. I mean, all of these things, right? And this information, it's not meant to make you even more anxious. Okay, it's meant to inform and to empower you so that you can take control of the stress and anxiety in your life and work on getting to the root cause. It's also meant to motivate you and help you take the steps that you need to manage this a little bit better. So I'm going to share another personal story. So about the last 5 years of my life have gone a little something like this. So I started my own health and wellness coaching practice in 2014, and it took off pretty quickly. And as a result of that coaching business, in 2016, a business partner and I founded a beverage company called Après. It was a direct competitor with Muscle Milk. Kind of think of it like the protein drink for the modern health and wellness consumer. And I ended up focusing all of my time and all of my efforts on building this company. And it was an incredible product. I mean, it had massive potential and people absolutely loved it. We raised money from venture capital. We had mega growth. We moved our team from San Francisco to LA. I lived in Venice Beach near the ocean. Like from the outside, my life looked grand and dandy and really fun. And I was leading this really high growth startup. But inside, I was close to a total meltdown. So May of last year, though, I started to notice that things had gotten pretty bad. You know, I wasn't sleeping well. I had zero meditation practice. I worked 24/7 and my family was really feeling it. And I was reaching for a glass of wine and pretty unhealthy food every night that I would get home from work. And I was just beyond stressed and anxious. So as a health coach and someone that's very in touch with their body and what's, good for them, it was a massive wake up call for me to see how kind of quote unquote off the rails I had gotten. It happened really slowly over time. So I didn't realize it until it hit me square in the face. So I had some push from family and friends and other natural healers that I was working with to start to get back to my roots slowly. So I started to do a couple things. I started to journal a little bit here and there. I wrote myself emails about how I was feeling and about the life that I wanted to live. I started meditating again, using Headspace for just 10 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week. And I started to implement a few of these other techniques that I'm going to talk about later on in the presentation. It wasn't anything major. It was just these small little steps that I started to take to get more in control of my life. So a few months after doing this, I had this realization that I had never been happy at this company, at Après. It was never going to serve me in the way that I wanted it to. The company was keeping me small. I'd never completely, I'd never stepped into my role there, the role that I really wanted to have. And so ultimately, I decided to leave. And it was traumatic and difficult and really crazy. And by some people's standards, they thought I was insane, but it was what I needed to do to get my sanity back. But I never would have gotten there or figured out what I needed to do had I not started to implement those small changes and techniques to calm myself down and get back in touch with what my body and my brain, more importantly, really needed. So I'm not telling you guys that at the end of this presentation, you need to go quit your job. That is not the intention at all. This story is just meant to show you how powerful these tools are. when you set aside a little bit of time for yourself, you can start to fill your glass back up, right? Even just a little bit, and you can get back in touch with what's important for you. And you can start to build the life of your dreams because you're feeling less stressed and less anxious, and you know exactly what it is that you need to take care of yourself. So I want to make something clear about the tools that I'm going to share here. There are a combination of two different kinds of stressors here, okay? So there's proactive stress relieving tools, and then there's reactive stress relieving tools, okay? So the 7 techniques that I'm going to share, they're either proactive stress tools or they're reactive stress relieving tools, okay? So stress, like I said, it's not going to go away. Whether you leave your job, when quarantine ends, it's still going to be here. No matter how high up in the food chain you are at work, how much money you make, where you live, it's all still going to be there. That's just the human experience. But there are ways for us to handle that stress more proactively, right? So that it doesn't show up quite as much, and so that we feel like we are in control. Those are the tools that help the stress show up in a weaker way than it was in the very beginning, okay? So there are techniques that help you really decrease that stress, and they can help you get back to that calm and peaceful place, okay? So without further ado, we are going to dive right into technique number 1, okay? So this is a proactive stress relieving technique, and it seems rather simple, but I want you to stick with me here, okay? So we need to have a practice in our lives on a regular basis that helps us identify where our stress is coming from. Just that awareness of what's causing us stress has been proven in studies to decrease our stress. It's just being aware of what it is. It helps us get clarity. And with that clarity comes more certainty, okay? So once you know what's going on, you feel better. So what I want to talk about here is setting expectations. So most stress comes from unconscious expectations that we set. We want it to go like this. It isn't going the way that we wanted it to, and now we're stressed out. When everything goes the way we want it to, we don't get stressed out, right? It's when the expectations fall apart that we start to get stressed. And we have to learn how to manage those expectations. That doesn't mean we lower them at all. It just means that we prepare ourselves and the people around us for what it is that we want. So you need to have a clear idea of what your expectations are in your head. Here's an example. So you're going on a trip to Disneyland with your husband and your 2 kids, okay? You arrive and your kids start tugging you in one direction because they want to go on these rides over here, okay? Your husband, on the other hand, he's like, I'm starving. I have to go get food right now. I'm so hungry. I gotta go. And you, on the other hand, thought that you'd go straight to the biggest rides because you're there early and you want to skip the lines, and you feel like the lines will get longer as the day goes on. So now your kids are pulling you in one direction. Your husband's hungry. You had a totally different plan, and no one's on the same page here, right? And you freak out. It's really stressful. And that's because expectations weren't set before you went on the trip, right? What's important to each person? What do we want to make sure we do when we get there? What's the plan upon arrival? Expectations weren't set. Same goes for a big project at work. So you guys all get super psyched on a new project and like everyone's off to the races, right? But expectations were not set at the beginning of the project, right? When are things due? Who's owning what? So now Sally is stepping on your toes and trying to take your work away from you. And all of a sudden your boss needs something at 3 p.m. today that you didn't realize was your responsibility at all. And now your stress is through the roof, right? No expectations were set. Same thing with your spouse or your partner or your roommate. What is your expectation for this week? You know, sitting down with your roommate or your husband or your partner and saying, what do you want to get out of the week that's coming up? What do you have going on? And just spending 10 minutes talking about that. So I'll sit down with my husband and I'll say, hey, Tuesday's really busy for me. You know, I've got this webinar from 12 to 1. I want to make sure that I get in 3 workouts. Can you help me out and make lunch on Tuesday? And could you also make sure that I can have the office space with the closed door during these times? Because if we don't sit down and have that conversation early on in the week, it could be that he schedules a call for the office space and now we both need the office space for important calls at the same time. Or, you know, I don't get my workout in at 5 o'clock because he thought it was my night for dinner, but it's really his. So it's all about setting those expectations, okay? Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, so that is technique number 1. Technique number 2. So this is a reactive stress technique. So this is when you can already feel the stress coming up. The stress is starting to hit you. This is something that you can do right away to start to bring those stress levels back down, okay? So we've all heard that taking deep breaths is really good for our health and it's great for relaxation, which in turn leads to health benefits, which include less inflammation, lower blood pressure, and reduced stress and anxiety. That doesn't mean that we need to be, you know, a monk levitating in the Himalayas or a breath teacher to be able to do this correctly, okay? So the question is, you know, how do we implement this breath work realistically? And how do we quickly see the results, which is what we all want to know. How fast does it work? So when we're stressed out, our lungs actually take in less oxygen. Because we're taking in less oxygen, our body naturally tightens. This then leads to breathing patterns that are faster and more shallow, whether you notice it or not, okay? And this faster, more shallow breathing is what turns on that fight or flight cortisol response that I was talking about earlier. And when we're constantly pumping out that stress hormone, it has a really taxing effect on the body and a host of other health issues. So stress is directly correlated with how we breathe, which then puts our body into this fight or flight mode. So just a few minutes of deeper, slower breathing helps the body override the sympathetic system, which controls our fight or flight response, and lets the parasympathetic system, which controls our ability to relax, play a more dominant role. So this is a breathing technique that I want to walk you guys through here for a second. So you can do this anywhere at any time, even for just 60 seconds, and you're gonna see a really big effect physically on your body, okay? So the way this works, it's called box breathing. And basically what you do is you breathe in for 5 seconds, okay? You hold that breath for 5 seconds. You breathe out for 5 seconds. And you hold again for 5 seconds. So it's called box breathing. You're breathing in for 5, you hold for 5, out for 5, hold again for 5. Okay? So this is something you can do anywhere. It's really, really effective. And like I said, you can see right away that it takes you out of that sympathetic system that you're in, so that fight or flight mode, and it gets you right into the parasympathetic system, which is our ability to help us relax. And even just 60 seconds has a really, really big effect on the body. Okay, before I jump into adaptogenic herbs and essential oils, just drop me a hey, hi, I'm here, I'm loving this. Let me know you guys are all still super engaged. If you have any questions, drop all this into the chat box so I know how everyone's doing. If you haven't introduced yourself yet, please go ahead and do that in the chat box. I would love to know where people are from. Awesome. Thanks, Abby and Jess. Great to hear from you guys. Thanks, Kathy. Let me know if you haven't introduced yourselves yet. Let me know where you're from. Great, great, great. All right. If questions come up as we go, please just drop them into the chat box, okay? All right. Caroline from New York, hello, welcome. All right, so we're gonna jump right in here to adaptogenic herbs and essential oils. So adaptogens, including things like ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola, and cordyceps, all a total mouthful, I know, are a unique class of healing plants that balance, restore, and protect the body and make it easier for us to handle stress because they regulate our hormones and our physiological functions. So these adaptogens, they help balance and restore and protect the body. According to naturopath Edward Wallace, an adaptogen doesn't have a specific action. It helps you instead actually respond to any influence or stressor by normalizing your physiological functions. That's what makes adaptogens so cool, is they help bring your body back to that really relaxed, steady state. So I highlight a couple adaptogens for you here. So the first one is ginseng. So studies have shown that it can help improve calmness and some aspects of working memory. Scientists have said that ginseng possesses significant anti-stress properties, and it's the most potent kind is called Panang ginseng. So, and just so you guys know, as I'm going through this adaptogenic herbs and essential oils page, one of the handouts that I'm going to be passing out to you is going to have an outline of these adaptogenic herbs. So if you stay all the way to the end, I'm going to be passing out a link that'll have all these adaptogenic herbs on them, okay? All right, ashwagandha is next. So ashwagandha, it has really fantastic effects on cortisol and stress tolerance, and it's been studied for decades. So it helps us stabilize those cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, and studies have shown that it effectively improves your resistance towards stress, which is phenomenal. Rhodiola, it provides a biological defense against stress. So a 2009 study in Sweden determined that it exerts an anti-fatigue effect that increases mental performance, particularly the ability to concentrate, and decrease cortisol response to awakening stress in burnout patients with fatigue syndrome. So really good if you're feeling super overworked. And then the last one is cordyceps. So similar to other adaptogens I've mentioned, it impacts cortisol levels in a really positive way. So like I said, I'm gonna send you guys a handout with these adaptogens on them at the end through a link. And really quick, Jay just asks, box breathing, inhale through the nose. Yes, so you can do this either way, but if you'd rather do it all through the mouth, you can, or if you'd rather do a combination of inhale through the nose, hold, exhale through the mouth, hold. That's a phenomenal way to do it. But if you're just starting and you want to do it all through the mouth or all through the nose, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so in 2014, researchers found that after 4 weeks of treatment with essential oils, people saw a significant reduction in negative emotions, including feelings of anxiety, stress, and depression, improving immunity, balancing hormones, and helping with sleep and digestion. So depending on the essential oil, it can be used as aromatherapy, so smell, applied topically, or it can be ingested. So be sure to read up on the quality of the essential oils and then how best to use them depending on the brand that you choose, okay? So according to a study by PubMed, it suggests that compounds in lavender actually may stimulate activity in certain areas of the brain and influence the transmission of impulses between brain cells in ways that boost mood and produce a calming effect. So lavender as an essential oil and as aromatherapy can be really fantastic. It's also wonderful as a tea, especially before bed. Rose oil and rose water is another fantastic flower that can be really beneficial for stress and for before bed. You've probably seen it used many times in skincare routines as a mist, but ingested the right kind, rose water is said to reduce inflammation, alleviate anxiety, enhance mood, and soothe digestion. So there's a brand called Drink H2 Rose, and it's a fantastic rose water drink to try. Rose water essential oils are also fantastic, but not for ingestion. So simply breathing them in can help balance hormones, relieve anxiety, improve depression. It can also improve libido. For all these essential oils recommendations, I love doTERRA and Young Living as brands. They're made with really quality ingredients. There are a lot of frauds out there, so I typically stick with those two. I'm sure there are some others out there that are really good, but those are the ones that I'm the most familiar with if you guys are interested in essential oils. So for some context around how and why aromatherapy works, so it's very powerful because our sense of smell triggers powerful emotional responses. So when the scent of an essential oil is inhaled, molecules enter the nasal cavities and stimulate a firing mental response in the limbic system of the brain. So these stimulants help regulate stress, and they have a calming response, such as with heart rate and breathing patterns and the production of hormones. So that's why essential oils are so powerful. So I see a question coming in here about side effects of ashwagandha. So I do want to say, so I am a holistic health coach. I'm not a doctor. So these are merely recommendations coming from me. If you have any symptoms or you're worried about anything, I would always say run this by your primary care doctor first before you start taking anything new. These are just herbs, and you can find them in tea form, the ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola, cordyceps. There's a brand called Four Sigmatic that I love. They have a cordyceps tea that is really delicious. And then, like I said, the brands for essential oils for that question there, I really like doTERRA and Young Living. But again, for the adaptogenic herbs, I'm just a holistic health coach. So these are merely recommendations. Just make sure you run them by your doctor if you have additional questions. All right. I love this recommendation. So there is a very, very strong link between vitamin D deficiencies and high levels of anxiety. So your body naturally produces vitamin D from sunshine, which is why sun is called, the sunshine vitamin. Wow, say sunshine 10 times in a row really fast. It's super hard. So think about it this way. When you get sunlight, your body produces serotonin, and it's your happiness hormone, right? It means more energy, more focus throughout the day, more joy. And when your body doesn't see enough sunlight, you naturally produce melatonin, which makes you really tired. So that's why research has shown that sunlight, it supports your circadian rhythm, which is basically your sleep pattern, how you sleep at night. And it helps increase serotonin, which is your happiness hormone. So vitamin D production is associated with quality sleep. This means getting more sunshine is a fantastic way to make sure that you're getting restful shut-eye, okay? Uninterrupted sleep doesn't necessarily mean good, deep sleep. So if you have a sleep tracker, you should be aiming for about 20 to 25% of REM sleep, okay? That means you're getting some deep, restful sleep. But depending on your schedule or where you live, it can be really hard to get proper, adequate sun exposure. So if you can't get outside, and my recommendation is just 10 minutes every day of unprotected sunshine, even morning light is really great because it's less damaging for the skin. So 10 minutes of unprotected sunshine outside if you can. But if you don't have access to that, even just sitting next to a window with, exposed arms and shoulders, roll your t-shirt up a little bit and let the sunlight come in and hit you for about 10 minutes, and you'll just start to reap those benefits. You can also do things like invest in a red light or things like that. But for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to keep this pretty simple and just try and get outside and get some sunshine in. Okay. All right, quick question. I love the Yogi Lavender De-Stress Tea. Yes, Yogi Tea, they make great tea. I love that. Okay, so this is a really cool technique. This is called EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also known as tapping. So let me know in the comment box, has anyone heard of this before or tried EFT or tapping? Have you tried it? Have you heard of it? Eliza, you've heard of it? If you've tried it before, let me know too. We're going to go through a quick session together, but let me know if you've tried and heard. Okay. Did some online. It does help. It's simple. Yep, it sure is. So let me know if this is something that you've tried before. So we're going to go through an entire session here. So basically, EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping, it's really similar to acupuncture, but without the needles. So what you do with EFT is you tap on meridians. Let me take off my glasses here for a sec so I can tap. So you tap on meridians on the face and on the chest to help relieve tension. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and go through a session here ourselves and try and let go of some of this stress and anxiety that we might have. So for all of you here, I'd love for you to let me know, even if this is the only time you comment in the chat box, this is a really important part of what we're doing here. So let me know on a scale from 1 to 10, how stressed and anxious are you feeling right now? So 1 being, I'm so chill, like I just got out of bed and I feel amazing, I'm on vacation. 10 being, I'm having a meltdown and completely losing it. So where are we at right now? So we're at 4, we're feeling good. Oh, Lalitha is feeling good. You on vacation? That's awesome. All right, so we've got a 4, 6, a 7, a 3. Okay, all right, so we're like not that stressed out right now, but there's some stress here in the group. So what we're gonna do here by tapping is we're gonna see if we can get that stress level down 1 or 2 for us, okay? So I want you all to repeat after me and to follow along here. This will only take 2 or 3 minutes. So we're gonna start off by karate chopping the hand here. So you can do this on either hand. You can do it on the left or the right hand. And I'm just karate chopping here like this. So follow along with me. I'm karate chopping here and repeat after me. Even though I am completely stressed out and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. 2 more times. Even though I am completely stressed out and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. 1 more time. Even though I am completely stressed out and overwhelmed, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Okay, now follow along with me here. I'm going to start tapping on the top of the head. I am so incredibly stressed out. Above the eye. I can't believe how anxious I feel. Side of the eye. My body is so full of anxiety right now. Under the eye. I am just not sure how to control it. Under the nose. I feel so overwhelmed. Chin. I feel like I'm totally losing it. Collarbone. My mind just feels so out of control. Under the arm. Oh, I just feel so stressed and anxious right now. We're going to repeat that 1 more time. I'm so incredibly stressed out. I can't believe how stressed I feel right now. I feel so anxious. My body is so full of stress and anxiety. I'm not sure how to control it. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel like I'm losing it. My mind feels totally out of control. Okay, we're going to repeat on tap on those same spots again, and now we're going to do something a little more positive. I feel so much lighter and less stressed. I can feel my body healing. I can feel those emotions, those negative emotions leaving. I know that this stress had a greater purpose for me. I know that this stress is a wake-up sign for my body. I am feeling so much better and so much more relaxed. Wow, I feel so good. I feel like my body has let go of so much. Okay, so we just went through 1 round of tapping. So let me know, how did that feel for everyone? Did you guys go down? What number are you at now? So if you were at a 6 before, how are you feeling now? Or if you were at a 5, where are we? Go ahead and share this now with me. So we've gone from a 4 to a 2.5, from a 7 down to a 5. We've gone from a 4 to a 2. Okay, awesome. So we're seeing how this worked. Okay, so why did this work, right? So people were down a couple of levels. It's because tapping on these meridians in the body were releasing emotional barriers that had stood in the way of us healing our body. And this helps ease those emotional blockages, okay? So much like acupressure and pushing on acupressure points, you're releasing stagnant energy with this. You release clogged or blocked areas in the body. And we can unlock emotions and fears and limiting beliefs that have held us back by using this technique. It also works to help us lower cortisol levels in the brain. So I absolutely love tapping. It has helped me significantly throughout my life. And it only takes a couple minutes, and you can pretty much do it anywhere. You can really do it anywhere if you don't care about people staring at you, then you're tapping all over yourself. But it's easy to do, and it's completely free, and I just love that about this. So, okay. I want to take a deep breath here and just make sure it sounds like everyone's feeling much more relaxed. We're feeling really good. I'm so happy about that. I also wanted to share too, if you guys want to go a little bit deeper on the EFT and emotional freedom technique, I have a video on YouTube. If you just Google my name, DarbyJackson and EFT, you should see a video that comes up that I filmed recently that shows you exactly how to go through those EFT tips. So, yep. So Jay, you'll see there that I only karate chop on the first to start off the EFT. Okay, so we just start off with 3 rounds of the karate chop. So if you guys look that up on YouTube, you'll be able to see there exactly how I go through the whole system. And like I said, I'm also sending everyone a link to these slides at the end of this whole thing. So you'll be able to see this graph here and know exactly where you want to be tapping, all right? Next, so we're talking about grounding and earthing. So earthing, also known as grounding, is a simple way for us to absorb electromagnetic charge through touch via the earth. So studies have shown that it aids in efficient cell repair and function. It decreases inflammation, it helps with detoxification, and it significantly improves stress and also pain. So how do we do it? How do we earth? What does this mean? So it's when you put your bare feet in the earth on grass, sand, soil. Basically, earthing and grounding, it has a number of benefits. So it can help with sleep, it can increase energy, it really helps lower stress and promote calmness by reducing stress hormones. It can also help you normalize your circadian rhythm, normalize blood pressure. So there's evidence that earthing can be greatly beneficial for health by lowering free radical damage, so also called oxidative stress, it leads to inflammation and pain. So this is really cool. So according to the Journal of Environmental and Public Health, it is an established, though not yet widely accepted fact, that the Earth's surface possesses a limitless and continuously renewed supply of free or mobile electrons. The Earth's negative charges can create a stable internal bioelectrical environment for the normal functioning of all body systems, which may be important for setting the biological clock, regulating circadian rhythm, and balancing cortisol levels. So cool, right? All we have to do is just put our feet in the ground. So when I'm hiking, sometimes I'll take my boots off for 10 minutes in a particularly kind of muddy place. So I love doing that. I don't have that much space in my yard, but I'll walk outside at the end of the day from clients and I'll just sort of sift my feet around in the dirt for about 10 minutes. I love this because again, it's something you can just do really quickly outside of the house. For those of you that maybe don't have access to the earth or the ground, you can buy earthing mats online. I believe that there are some on Amazon, so that's an option for you guys too if you don't have access immediately to some grass or to some soil. But I love this. Also, if you follow me on Instagram at DarbyJackson, you'll see me out and about doing some earthing on a regular basis. It's pretty fun. Okay. So there is another proactive way of keeping stress and anxiety at bay here. And I would be totally remiss as a health coach if I didn't bring up the connection here. So eating sugar and refined carbs raises cortisol levels. But then that same molecule calms the body down. Okay, so according to hormone expert Weve, this causes blood sugar levels to continuously rise and drop. And every time they drop, those sugar cravings kick back in. And we're in this vicious cycle of just feeling like we constantly need more sugar and more carbs in our life. So we know that sugar and flour and unhealthy fats can cause stress and our hormones to peak and then to drop. So what can we do about it? The goal is to keep blood sugar levels balanced throughout the day with healthy fats, protein, and fiber at every meal. That's what's going to start us off without having that stress. We don't need that extra stress in our lives, right? So if we can control most of the time the food that we put in our mouths, we're going to be way better off and be able to handle the stress in our lives from a much better place. So the goal is to keep, like I said, blood sugars levels really stable. So a way for us to do that, let's say, for example, in the morning, aim to eat steel cut oats, but cook them in a coconut milk, right? That's full of all those wonderful healthy fats, and then top it with almond butter and some berries. Or eggs cooked with spinach and topped with guacamole, right? You're getting all of those healthy fats and that protein. You're keeping your blood sugar really stable. That's a phenomenal way to keep us from just spiraling out of control. So those are some great breakfasts to eat if you have a big presentation or something that you're nervous about. So it's important to focus on how we can heal and control, or it's important for us to know that we can heal and we can control our cortisol and our stress and anxiety to some extent, okay? We can't stop, the number of emails that we get from our boss, the times or the meetings that our team puts on our calendar, or when our kids are going to throw a tantrum. But there are ways for us to control our physiology so that when those stressful moments hit, we are prepared to handle them, because they're going to keep coming, right? So we can be proactive with our stress. We can eat the right way. We can use essential oils. Those are all things that we can do to make sure that stress doesn't hit us in a way that takes us completely, off kilter. All right. So I am sharing this last slide with you and this is an extra bonus. So really we're getting 8 stress relieving techniques here, because this has been one of the most impactful techniques for me from a stress and anxiety management perspective. So I journal for 10 minutes, 5 to 7 days per week, sometimes for longer periods of time when I'm really going through something. So journaling is incredibly powerful, because what it does is journaling helps us bridge the gap between who we are and who we intend to be. So again, journaling helps us bridge the gap between who we are and who we intend to be. It also serves as an additional outlet for worries, anxieties, and fears. So instead of bottling everything up inside, we're able to express it in a really safe place. And oftentimes, after we finish journaling, we look back at our fears and we realize they aren't quite as scary or as intimidating as we thought. So here are a few of my favorite journaling prompts. It's also, again, one of the things I'm going to share at the end of the presentation is going to be a link to a handout that I've created that has all of my favorite journaling prompts on it. It's so helpful and fantastic, and I absolutely love these. So a big one for us to think about here is, what is your biggest fear? Write about that for 5 or 10 minutes. What comes out? What step could you take right now that would have the biggest impact on your life? What could you start doing today that would have the biggest impact on your life? Another one that I found to be particularly powerful, especially with clients that are struggling with body image, is if you could write a letter to your body, what would it say? And this can be a really healthy exercise for us to start to get some insight into the relationship we have with our body and the steps that we can take to fix it. So again, I'm going to share all these prompts with you at the end via the chat box. And I just love journaling so much. I've seen it work really well for me, and I continue to see it work really well for clients. So don't feel like you need to sit down and do this whole Dear Diary type of thing. Instead, just try out one of these prompts and write for 5 or 10 minutes and just see what comes up. See if it helps you. Okay. So let's go over what we have learned so far throughout this presentation. So I'm going to spend we have 9 minutes left here. So I'm going to go over what we've learned. I'm going to share the links that I talked about in the chat box here. I'm going to answer some questions and then just really go over quickly what it's like to work with me as a health coach. So what have we learned? So we've learned about stress and our hormones. So under stress, our bodies release cortisol. And cortisol is meant to help us survive, right? From a primal standpoint. But when it's constantly being secreted, it has massive impacts on the body. So to help with that, we've come up with some techniques. And some of those techniques include box breathing, adaptogenic herbs, sunshine. We tried out the emotional freedom technique. We talked about grounding. So the goal here is just choose 1 or 2 of these that resonate with you, right? And try them out over the course of the next week or 2. Because like I said, it's all about these small incremental changes that we can make over the course of time. That's where we really start to see massive changes come in. Okay, so I promised you guys I'm going to share this link right now that has, so this is a link to a Google Drive. And inside of this Google Drive, I have all of the handouts that I talked to you about. So I've got the adaptogenic herbs, I've got the journaling prompts, and then I've got a link to all of these slides. So I want to answer some questions really quickly. So start to put your questions in, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about, so like I said, I've been health coaching since 2014. I've seen massive, massive transformations with so many clients. And the biggest thing here that I want you guys to remember is if you don't put yourself first, if you don't put on your oxygen mask before helping those around you, you cannot show up 100% for the people and the things in your life. Instead, you're exhausted, you're frustrated, you're angry, and approaching every task on your list from a really empty tank. And your body totally feels it. So please use the resources that I shared daily, put in the work, test out the suggestions, and watch as you start to fill your tank back up. And that's what I do with my clients, is I help you determine and then break down those blockers inhibiting you from reaching your health goals. That's what I do with my clients every single day. And I want to work with you guys to help you build a roadmap so that you can show up in the most positive way every single day. So just a little bit more about me and how I work with clients. So I work with clients on a number of different factors. We typically do 45 to 50-minute Zoom calls where we focus on an actionable plan to help you achieve your health goals. For some, that's more of a focus on food and healing your body. For others, it's stress-reducing techniques like the ones that we just discussed, or it's a combination of both. But it's because I don't believe that health is just about the food that you put in your body or how often you exercise. It's about how you handle stress, your relationships, your work, your sleep. It's the full spectrum, okay? That's what I really believe with all of my clients. So if you're interested and you want to learn more about me, I know that Christine shared a link to my WellSet profile up a little bit higher up in the chat. Right here on the slides, I have a link to my Instagram. Please come join me over there. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to meet you. That's at DarbyJackson on Instagram. My website is DarbyJackson.com. And then also, if you guys want to email me, just reach out, Darby@DarbyJackson.com. I'd love to have a conversation. I want to make sure I answer a couple of these questions here. So Jay asks all types of flour. So earlier when I was talking about food and how that affects stress, we want to be careful of refined flour. So we want to be careful of regular flour. Flours that does work is whole wheat flour is okay if you don't have an allergy to gluten or a gluten sensitivity. I love in particular, I cook a lot with coconut flour and with almond flour. So what I love about those is they're protein packed and they have healthy fats and they keep that blood sugar really stable. And keeping blood sugar really stable is critical when it comes to managing stress hormones. So I typically recommend coconut flour or almond flour. Eliza, I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry if I'm not. Eliza asks, how long should we engage in earthing? So if you have time, 10 minutes is great. 10 minutes is typically when we'll start to see some results. Sometimes I only have 5 though, and we live in a modern world and things are always happening. So even if you can only get outside and do it for a couple minutes, that's totally okay. Aim for 10 if you can. Okay, If there are any other questions, please drop them into the chat box now. Otherwise, it's been such a pleasure to go through this webinar with all of you. Please, like I said, connect with me on Instagram at DarbyJackson. Christine just shared a link to my WellSet profile, so you guys can also check me out there, or if you'd like to book a session, you can go ahead and do so there. So thank you guys. Eliza, thank you. Amel, Maggie, or Margie, I think that is. All of you guys, thank you so much for joining me here. It's been a total pleasure, and I hope to do it again soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Darby, especially. That was incredible. Here, I'll turn on my video just so you can see me.
See you in Hawaii.
Yes. And as Darby mentioned, I shared her link to her profile that you can book her on WellSet. And then just a reminder that we will be launching a virtual studio soon where you can rewatch these recordings and learn more about our different modalities that we offer. And that's all for today, but I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you for sharing all your tips, Darby. That was so useful and helpful.
Great. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.